March of 1883, General Leo von Caprivi became the chief of the Admiralty following Archit von Schorschen's resignation. Caprivi was required to submit a memorandum to the Reichstag on his plans by the March of 1884. A general of the Imperial German Army, he was inexperienced in naval matters that he convened a council with senior naval officers on the 16th of January, 1884, to gather opinions on future naval construction programs. At this time, he was constrained by the fleet plan of 1873 that had been created under Schorschen's direction and had been approved by the Reichstag. The plan governed the size and composition of the German fleet, calling for 14 ocean-going ironclad warships. A total that had been reached with the launching of the casemate ship Oldenburg in 1884. The nominal completion of the 1873 plan further restrained Caprivi, as in the view of many members of the Reichstag, naval budgets could be reduced, since no new ships would be needed until the oldest ironclads became to reach the age of 30 in the mid-1890s. At the January Council meeting, Caprivi emphasized the need for careful consideration of new designs, noting that the Navy could not afford the luxury of failed experiments, owing to preliminary refusal to authorize funding for new warships. Concerns with the two-front war against France and Russia dominated Caprivi's thoughts, which resulted in his decision to opt for a strategy of coastal defense in the memorandum. He noted that without a powerful battle fleet, the sea-going ironclads would not have much utility against the numerical superior French fleet. He also pointed out that at the time, ship designers and armor manufacturers were competing to defeat each other, which necessitated spiraling costs for navies that attempted to keep pace with the latest technology developments. He also saw that the torpedo could be used to easily sink large armored warships, and would be an effective weapon for coastal defense. As a result of these considerations, Caprivi recommended building a large number of smaller coastal defense ships and torpedo boats to defend Germany's coastlines in the event of war. Aware of the preliminary objections to increase naval spending, he avoided plans for the construction of expensive battleships. Considering the French Navy, then at the height of the dominance of the young school, came to the same conclusions which respected to their contamination with the British Royal Navy. Indeed, the 1870s and 1880s marked a period of tactical and strategic confusion in naval thinking in the world's major navies for the same reasons that Caprivi had highlighted in his memoir. Despite the memorandum submitted to the Reichstag that inscribed capital ships construction, Caprivi secretly discussed new ironclads at length with senior naval officers. He introduced Counter-Admiral Maximum von der Goltz, then directed the Admiralty's Naval Department to prepare a list of 13 questions concerning the characteristics of a new capital ship, and then to circulate them among naval officers to gather views of the topic. The questions included requirements for speed, cruising radius, maximum draft, whether sailing rigs could be included, the number type and arrangement of main battery guns, and the armor type and layout. Goltz met with several other officers, including Hans von Kloster, August von Thomson, Hansack, Wilhelm Butzel, Karl Barden, Konrad von Bonnehaus, Gustav Schmidt, and Kurt von Mercian. On the 20th of October, 1885, to discuss the questions, they settled on a ship armed with four 30.5 centimeter or 12-inch guns, ranged in the Longchamp pattern favored by contemporary French capital ship designers. A thick armor belt and armored deck, and an ability to steam over 5,000 nautical miles. Other questions including the top speed and crew size were left unanswered. At the same time, Kurfurst requested design proposals from the Naval Construction Office, which submitted plans for ships that ranged in size from small 2,500-ton coastal defense ships armed with a battery of two 21-centimeter or 8.3-inch guns to heavily armored 10,000-ton ocean-going battleships equipped with seven 30.5-centimeter guns. The Reichstag still refused to authorize expensive new ships, especially in light of the cost of creating the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal. Though Kurfürst was able to convince enough members that the entrance of the canal would be vulnerable to attack, and that coastal defense ships would be necessary to guard them, the Reichstag accordingly approved funds for 10 such vessels, which ultimately became the 6th Siegfried and 2 Odin-class coastal defense ships. The last two vessels were later cancelled in 1893. The first ship, SMS Siegfried, was authorized for the 1887 through 1888 budget year. In early 1887, Captain Jur C, or Captain of the Sea, Friedrich von Hollmann, who was now Kurfürst's chief of staff, presented plans for the 1889 through 1890 budget year that included the construction of one of the seagoing battleships requested by Gonzales's committee, with a second vessel scheduled for the 1892 through 1893 year. Kurfürst replied that funding would have to be approved by the Reichstag, and that there would still be testing necessary to determine what type of armor they could carry. In 1888, Kaiser Wilhelm I died, and his successor, the terminally ill Kaiser Friedrich III, remained on the throne for just 99 days before passing away as well. The new Kaiser, Wilhelm II, was an ardent supporter of the Navy, which was to have profound impacts on the future of the service. Shortly thereafter, Kurfürst resigned and was replaced by Vice Admiral Alexander von Montes. In July and in March of 1889, Wilhelm II organized the naval command structure, creating the Reichsarmament, or RMA, which was now in control of naval construction. The Navy initially requested a pair of battleships in line with Hollmann's projected budget, but Wilhelm II intervened to demand 4 new ships of the 1889 through 1890 budget. German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck secured funding for the ships through the larger Army Expense Bill, though the Reichstag delayed funding for the later 3 members of the class. The design for what was to become the Brandenburg-class was prepared by Chief Constructor Alfred Dietrich. He originally used Oldenburg as a starting point. In his first memorandum on the project, his note noted that the Oldenburg design would have to be enlarged to provide room for the more powerful propulsion machinery and increased storage of the coal, and armor would have to be strengthened, among other changes. Displacement was originally fixed at 8,500 tons. In a subsequent memorandum dated on the 8th of August, 1888, Dietrich raised the possibility of increase the caliber of the main battery from 24 centimeter or 9.4 inches to 26 centimeters or 10 inches. Dietrich met with Montes on the 15th of August, who requested that the new ship be armed with 4 28 centimeter 11-inch guns. Since the 26 centimeter guns were perceived to be too small to effectively engage the largest Russian battleships being built. This version was submitted 2 days later to Wilhelm II, who approved it. Dietrich intentionally considered the latest British or Russian battleship being built, the Kurtia II, and the Imperator Alexander II classes, which arranged their main battery to infants end on fire. He briefly examined the possibility of mounting 2 turrets forward, similar to the Kurtius or Eternia, the second class design, but the beam necessary to accommodate guns of that size, along with the hull armor, would have made the ship too large to be docked in most German dry docks. Variants with 46 single-gun turrets were also prepared, as was a version with 2 twin-gun turrets and 1 single-gun turret wing turrets. By this time, the displacement limited had been raised to 10,000 tons, though the RMA agreed to allow an increase to 11,400 tons, as that was the maximum displacement that could be accommodated by existing infrastructure. As Dietrich continued to work on the plans, he examined other foreign contemporaries, such as the French Amiral Bardin-class ironclad battleships that carried 3 main battery guns in individual barbette mounts, all on the center line. He proposed an armament of 6 heavy guns and 3 2-gun turrets in the same arrangement. While this would have reduced the end-on-fire capability, the RMA determined that the heavier broadside outweighed the reduction in firing arcs ahead or astern. The ship were to have carried a uniform battery of 6 28-centimeter or of the MRK L-35 design for the guns. But during construction, a longer 40 caliber version, the MRK L-40 variant, became available. The fore and aft turrets received the longer guns, but the center turret did not have enough space to fit them owing to the closeness of the aft superstructure, so the shorter guns were retained. The Brandenburg was the first ocean-going capital ships to be built for the German fleet in almost 20 years. Their construction caused significant concern in Russia, which was a possible naval opponent in the Baltic Sea. The Russians began to strengthen their Baltic fleet with as many as 10 new dreadnoughts, though funding provided or proved to be insignificant, and the program was significantly pared down. The Brandenburg-class was significantly smaller and less powerful than the contemporary British Royal Salvage class, but roughly equal to the series of French battleships begun with the Charles Martel and the Russian Navarin. The French ships being much faster, but much less heavily armed, and the Russian battleships being slower but armed with heavier main battery guns. Though they were first modern battleships built in Germany, pressing the Tirpitz-era high-seas fleet. The authorization for the ships came as part of the construction program that reflected the strategic and tactical confusion of the 1880s, caused by theories like the Genoa et Cole. Kurfurst Friedrich Wilhelm was 115.7 meters long overall and had a beam of 19.5 meters. which was increased to 19.74 meters with the addition of torpedo nets, and had a draft of 7.6 meters forward and 7.9 meters aft. She displaced 10,013 tons as designed and up to 10,670 tons at full combat load. She was equipped with two sets of three-cylinder vertical triple expansion steam engines that each drove a screw propeller. Steam was provided by 12 Traverse Cartierol Scotch Marine boilers. The ship's propulsion systems was rated at 10,000 metric horsepower and had a top speed of 16.5 knots. She had a maximum range of 4,300 nautical miles at a cruising speed of 10 knots. Her crew numbered 38 officers and 530 enlisted men. She was unusual for her time in that she possessed a broadside of 6 heavy guns and 3 twin-gun turrets, rather than the 4-gun main battery typical of contemporary battleships. Forward and aft turrets carried 28cm or 11-inch guns, also marked as L or KL 40 guns. And the midships turret mounted a pair of 28cm guns with shorter L35 barrels. Her secondary armament consisted of 8 10.5cm or 4.1-inch SKL 35 guns and 8.8cm or 3.5-inch SKL 30 quick-firing guns, mounted in casemates. Kurfurst Friedrich Wilhelm's armament suit was rounded out with 6 45cm or 17.7-inch torpedo tubes, all in above-water swivel mounts. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was also protected with nickel-steel Krupp armor, a new type of strengthened or stronger armor compared to previous. Her main belt armor was 400mm or 15.7 inches thick, and the central citadel that protected the ammunition magazines and machinery spaces. The deck was 60mm or 2.4 inches thick. The main battery barbettes were protected with 300mm or 11.8-inch thick armor. As the members of the class entered service in late 1893, they conducted sea trials that lasted until 1894. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm's tests revealed problems with her propulsion machinery that required lengthy repairs for much of 1894. Brandenburg suffered a boiler explosion during sea trials on the 16th of February 1894 that killed 44 men, 28 or 25 crew members, 18 shipyard workers, and 1 from the commission evaluating the trials. The accident had been caused by an incorrectly manufactured valve in the starboard engine. The 4 ships were among the last German vessels to undergo builder's trials before formal acceptance by the Kaiserliche Marine. After Wörth, most German capital ships underwent testing after commissioning. Over the course of their careers, the ships underwent a series of modernizations or modifications in a sense. After entering service in 1894 through 1895, the vessels had their funnels increased in height by 1.5 to 3 meters to reduce smoke interference with mainmast spotting top. Beginning in 1896, the German Navy began to acquire 3.5cm or 1.5-inch Maxim guns to supplement the 8.8cm guns and anti-torpedo boat defense. though these were very light weapons, firing a 0.66 kilogram or 1.5 pound projectile. The Germans believed that a hail of fire would prevent torpedo boat crews from approaching close enough to launch their torpedoes. The guns had a maximum rate of fire of 100 rounds per minute, but using deliberate fire, the rate was 33 shots per minute. 4 of these guns were installed in the fighting tops of the ship's masts before their deployment in East Asia in 1900. All 4 ships received wireless telegraphy sets, making them the first ships in the German fleet to carry radio sets. Between 1902 and 1904, the 4 ships of the Brandenburg-class were extensively modified. During the modernization, a second armored conning tower was added in the aft superstructure, along with a gangway. The new tower had sides 120 millimeters, or 4.7 inch thick, and a 20 millimeter or 0.79 inch roof. The work included increasing the ship's coal storage capacity and adding another pair of 10.5 centimeter guns. The plans had initially called for the center 28 centimeter to be replaced with an armored battery of medium caliber guns, but this proved to be prohibitively expensive. The ship's torpedo armament was significantly reduced. 2 of the broadside torpedo tubes were removed, as were both bow tubes, while one above-water tube was installed in the stern in a trainable mount. A total torpedo storage amounted to 5 torpedoes. Their masts had their searchlight platforms removed. The refit reduced the ship's displacement by 500 to 700 tons. Later in her career, Wörth received 2 searchlight mounts on the roof of the fighting tops of her foremast, along with a third on the roof of her aft bridge. An enclosed spotting top was installed in 1915. Both Wörth and Brandenburg were disarmed in 1916 after they were removed from active service. Kurfurst Friedrich Wilhelm was the 4th and final ship of the Brandenburg class to be built and commissioned. She was ordered as Battleship D and was laid down at the Kurfürst Wharf or Imperial Shipyard in Wilhelmshaven in 1890. She was the first ship of the class to be launched. On the 30th of June, 1891, the ceremony was attached by Kaiser Wilhelm II and his wife Augusta Victoria. She was commissioned into the German fleet on the 29th of April 1894, the same day as her sister, the Brandenburg. While on sea trials, the ship suffered from several problems with her propulsion system. She was therefore decommissioned for repairs to machinery, and before being recommissioned on the 1st of November 1894. Construction of Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm cost the German Navy 11.23 million marks. Upon her commission, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was assigned to the 1st Division of the 1st Battle Squadron alongside her 3 sisters. She replaced the ironclad Bayern as the squadron flagship on the 16th of November, under the command of Vice Admiral Hans von Korster. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm would remain the flagship for the next 6 years. The 1st Division was accompanied by the 4 older Schoschen-class ironclads in the 2nd Division, though by 1901 through 1902, the Schoschens were replaced by the new Kaiser Friedrich III class battleships. The ship was a training ground for later commanders-in-chief of the High Seas Fleet, including Admirals Reinhard Scheer and Franz von Hipper, who both served aboard the ship as navigational officers during 1897 and October of 1898. to September of 1899, respectively. After entering service, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was the rest of the squadron attended ceremonies for the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal at Kiel on the 3rd of December 1894. The squadron thereafter began a winter training cruise in the Baltic Sea. This was the first such cruise by the German fleet. In previous years, the bulk of the fleet was deactivated for winter months. During this voyage, the 1st Division anchored in Stockholm on the 7th from the 7th to the 11th of December. During the 900th anniversary of the birth of the Swedish king Gustavus Adolphus, King Oscar II held a reception for the visiting German delegation, which included Prince Heinrich, the younger brother of Wilhelm II, and the commander of the battleship Wörth. Thereafter, further exercises were conducted in the Baltic before the ships had to put into their home ports for repairs. During this dockyard period, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm had her funnels extended at height. In 1895, began with what became the normal trip sent to the Holgen and then to Bremerhaven, with Wilhelm II on board. This was followed by individual ships and divisional training, which was interrupted by a voyage to the northern North Sea. On this trip, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was accompanied by her sister ship Brandenburg. The two ships stopped in Warwick and Schottland on the 16th to the 23rd of March. This was the first time units of the main German fleet had left home waters. The purpose of the exercise was to test the ships in heavier weather. Both vessels performed admirably. In May, more fleet maneuvers were carried out in the western Baltic, and they were concluded by a visit to the fleet in Kirkwall in Orkney. The squadron returned to Kiel in early June, where preparations were underway for the opening of the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal. Tactical exercises were carried out in Kiel Bay in the presence of foreign delegates to the opening ceremony. On the 28th of June, an explosion occurred on one of the ship's Princes, killing 7 crewmen and injuring future Vice Admiral Wilhelm Storkel. Further training exercises lasted until the 1st of July, where the 1st Division began a voyage into the Atlantic Ocean. This operation had political motivations. Germany had only been able to send a small contingent of vessels, the protected cruiser Constant Augusta, the coastal defense ship Hagen, and the screw frigate Schlesien, to an interventional naval demonstration off the Montken coast at the same time. The main fleet could therefore provide moral support to the demonstration by steaming to Spanish waters. Rough weather again allowed Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm and her sisters to demonstrate the excellent seakeeping. The fleet departed Vigo and stopped in Queenstown, Ireland. Wilhelm II, aboard his yacht Hohenzollern, attended the Kaust Regatta, while the rest of the fleet stayed off the Isle of Rot. On the 10th of August, the fleet returned to Wilhelmshaven and began preparations for the autumn maneuver. Later that month, the first exercises began in the Helgoland Bright on the 25th of August. The fleet then steamed through the Shark Arc to the Baltic. Heavy storms caused significant damage to many of the ships and torpedo boats, including the torpedo boat S-41, which would end up capsizing and sank in the storms. Only 3 men were saved. The fleet stayed briefly in Kiel before resuming exercises, including live fire exercises in the Kattegat and the Great Belt. The main maneuvers began on the 7th of September with a mock attack from Kiel toward the eastern Baltic. Subsequent maneuvers took place off the coast of Parmaguna and Danzig Bay. A fleet maneuver, or fleet review, from Wilhelm II off Joshoft concluded the maneuvers on the 14th of September. Kurfurst Friedrich Wilhelm went to Dreadnought for periodic maintenance on the 1st of October. The ironclad Baden temporarily placed her as flagship until the work was completed on the 20th of October. The rest of the year was spent in individual ship training, with the exception of a short trip to Gothenburg from the 5th to the 9th of November. Only 3 other ships accompanied Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm on this visit: the ironclad Schoten and Württemberg, and the vessel Imperial. On the 9th of December, the squadron commander shifted his flagship or flag to Württemberg, while Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm went into Dreadnought for an overhaul. The year 1896 followed much the same pattern as the previous year. On the 10th of March, 1896, Kurfürst once again, raised his flag aboard Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm. Individual ship training was conducted through April, followed by squadron training in the North Sea in late April and early May. This included a visit to Dutch ports of Visken and Norwich. Further maneuvers, which lasted from the end of May to the end of July, took the squadron further north in the North Sea, frequently into Norwegian waters. The ships visited Bergen on the 11th to the 18th of May. From the maneuvers, Wilhelm II and Chinese Viceroy Li Henzhang observed a fleet review off of Kiel. On the 9th of August, the training fleet assembled in Wilhelmshaven for the annual autumn fleet training. Following the conclusion of the maneuvers, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm again went into dock for maintenance, and while she was out of service, Kolscher transferred his flag to Schoten. From the 16th of September to the 3rd of October, Kolscher again flew his flag from Schoten from the 17th of December to the 1st of March, 1897. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm and the rest of the fleet operated under the normal routine of individual unit training in the second half of 1897. Earlier in the year, the Naval Command considered deploying the first squadron, including Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm, to another naval demonstration off Margrave to protect the murder or to protest the murder of 2 German nationalists there, but a smaller squadron of sailing frigates was sent instead. The typical routine was interrupted in early August when Wilhelm II and Augusta went to visit the Russian Emperor court at Kronstadt. Both divisions of the first squadron were sent to accompany the Kaiser. They had returned to Northernwasser in Danzig on the 15th of August, where the rest of the fleet joined them for the annual autumn maneuvers. These exercises reflected the tactical thinking of the new State Secretary of the Reichsmarine, Counter-Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz, and the new commander of the 1st Squadron, Vice Admiral August von Thomson. These new tactics stressed accurate gunnery, especially at long ranges. Though the necessities of the line ahead led to the great deal of rigidity in the tactics, Thompson's emphasis on shooting created the basis for the excellent German gunnery during World War I. The maneuvers were completed on the 22nd of September in Wilhelmshaven. In early December, the 1st Division conducted maneuvers in the Konket and the Skarkark, though they were cut short due to shortages in officers and men. The fleet followed the typical routine of individual and fleet training in 1898 without incident, though a voyage to the British Isles was also included. The fleet stopped in Queenstown, Greenock, and Kirkwall. The fleet assembled in Kiel on the 14th of August for the annual autumn exercises. The maneuvers included a mock blockade of the coast of Mecklenburg and a pitched battle with an eastern fleet in the Danzig Bay. While steaming back to Kiel, a severe storm hit the fleet, causing significant damage to many ships and sinking torpedo boat S-58. The Kiel, or the fleet, then transited the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal and continued the maneuvers in the North Sea. Training finished on the 17th of September in Wilhelmshaven. In December, the 1st Division conducted artillery and torpedo training in Erkenford Bay, followed by divisional training in the Konget and Skarkark. During these maneuvers, the division visited Konsbacka, Sweden, from the 9th to the 13th of December. After returning to Kiel, the ships of the 1st Division went into dock for their winter repairs. On the 5th of April, 1899, the ships participated in the celebrations commemorative the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Erkenford during the First Skånsk War. In May, the 1st and 2nd Divisions, along with the Reserve Division from the Baltic, went on a major cruise into the Atlantic. On the voyage out, the 1st Division stopped in Dover, and the 2nd Division went into Falmouth to stock their coal supplies. The 1st Division then joined the 2nd Division at Falmouth on the 8th of May, and the two units then departed for the Bay of Biscay, arriving in Lisbon on the 12th of May. There, they were met by the British Channel fleet of 8 battleships and 4 armored cruisers. The Portuguese king, Carlos I, came aboard Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm to inspect the German flagship. The German fleet then departed for Germany, stopping again in Dover on the 24th of May. There, they participated in the Naval Review celebrating Queen Victoria's 80th birthday. The fleet returned to Kiel on the 31st of May. In July, the fleet conducted squadron maneuvers in the North Sea, which included coastal defense exercises with soldiers from X-Corps. On the 16th of August, the fleet assembled in Danzig once again for annual autumn maneuvers. The exercises started in the Baltic, and on the 30th of August, the fleet passed through the Kangert and Shark and steamed into the North Sea for further maneuvers in the German Bight, which lasted until the 7th of September. The third phase of the maneuvers took place in Korngut and the Great Belt from the 8th to the 26th of September, where the maneuvers concluded and the fleet went into port for annual maintenance. The year 1900 began with the unusual routine of individual and divisional exercises. In the second half of March, the squadrons met in Kiel, followed by torpedo and gunnery practices in April, and a voyage to the eastern Baltic. From the 7th to the 26th of May, the fleet went on a major training cruise to the northern North Sea, which included stops in Shetland on the 12th to the 15th of May, and in Bergen from the 18th to the 22nd of May. On the 8th of July, the ships of the 1st Division were reassigned to the 2nd Division, and the role of fleet flagship was transferred to the recently commissioned battleship Kaiser Wilhelm II. Kurfurst Friedrich Wilhelm started our first major operation in 1900, when the 1st Division was deployed to China during the Boxer Uprising. Chinese nationalists led siege to the foreign embassies in Beijing and murdered the German minister. At the time, the East Asia Squadron consisted of the protector cruisers Kaiserin Augusta, Hansa, Hertha, and the smaller cruisers Erin and Golfin, and the gunboats Jager and Ithris. But the Kaiser decided that an expeditionary force was necessary to reinforce the Eight National Alliance that had formed to defeat the Boxers. The expeditionary force consisted of Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm and her three sisters, 6 cruisers, 10 freighters, 3 torpedo boats, and 6 regiments of the Marines, under the command of Field Marshal Alfred von Waldenser. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm served as flagship of Richard von Golber, who took command on the 6th of July. On the 7th of July, Golber reported that his ships were ready for the operation, and they left 2 days later. The 4 battleships and the Osho-Halia transited the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal and stopped in Wilhelmshaven to rendezvous with the rest of the expeditionary force. On the 11th of July, the force steamed out of the Jade Bight, bound for China. They stopped to coal in Gibraltar on the 17th to the 18th of July, and they passed through the Suez Canal on the 29th through the 27th of July. More coal was taken on at Purma and in the Red Sea. And on the 2nd of August, the fleet entered the Indian Ocean. On the 10th of August, the ships reached Colombo, Ceylon, and on the 14th of August, they passed through the Strait of Malacca. They arrived in Singapore on the 18th of August and departed 5 days later, reaching Hong Kong on the 28th of August. 2 days later, the expeditionary force stopped in the outer roadstead of Wonsong, downriver from Shanghai. From there, Wörth was detached to cover the disembarkation of the German Expeditionary Corps outside the Taku forts, while Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm and her other 2 sisters joined the blockade of the Yangtze River, which also included the British contingent of 2 battleships, 3 cruisers, 4 gunboats, and 1 destroyer. A smaller Chinese fleet stationed upriver did not even clear their ships for action, owing to the strength of the Anglo-German fleet. By the time the German fleet had arrived, the siege of Beijing had already been lifted by forces from other members of the Eight-Nation Alliance that had formed to deal with the Boxers. In early September, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm and the rest of the German fleet was moved to the Yellow Sea, where Wolnersee, who had been given command of all ground forces of the Eight-National Alliance, planned stronger actions against the harborers of the northern China. On the 3rd through the 4th of September, the flagship of the East Asia Squadron, the 1st Bismarck, reconsidered the harbors of Shanghai and Quantanamo. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm then went to Shanghai and sent a landing party of 100 men ashore, while torpedo crews cored the Chinese minefield. She then returned to the Wonsan roads, while the ships of the East Asia Squadron remained off both ports. Since the situation was calmed, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm and her sisters were sent to Hong Kong or Nagasaki, Japan, in early 1901 for overhauls. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm went to Nagasaki from the 4th to the 23rd of January. In March, the Expeditionary Force reassembled in Quindale for gunnery and tactical exercises. On the 26th of May, the German High Command recalled the Expeditionary Force to Germany. The fleet took on supplies in Shanghai and departed Chinese waters on the 1st of June. The fleet stopped in Singapore on the 10th to the 15th of June and took on coal before proceeding to Colombo, where they stayed from the 22nd to the 26th of June. Steaming against the Moonsons forced the fleet to stop in Mahan and Shotness to take on more coal. The fleet then stopped for a day each to take on coal in Aden and Port Said. On the 1st of August, they reached Sanditz, and then met with the 1st Division and steamed back to German waters. They separated after reaching Helgoland, and on the 11th of August, after reaching the Jade Roadstead, the ships of the Expeditionary Force were visited by Kosher, who was now the Inspector General of the Navy. The following day, Gerblon lowered his flag aboard Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm, and the expeditionary fleet was dissolved. In the end, the operation cost the German government more than 100 million marks. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm went to Kiel after returning from the expedition to China, where on the 14th of August, Fritschon raised his flag aboard the ship. She was assigned to the 1st Squadron as the 2nd Command flagship for the annual autumn maneuvers. These exercises were interrupted by the visit of Nicholas II of Russia, who came aboard Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm after the maneuvers. Fritschon was replaced by Kurt von Prittwitz and on Gafferon on the 24th of October. In late 1901, the fleet went on a cruise to Norway, during which Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm stopped in Oslo. During the months of December, January, and February, the ship was in dry dock for major repair work. The pattern of training for 1902 remained unchanged from previous years. The 1st Squadron went on a major training cruise that started on the 25th of April. The squadron, in initially steamed to Norwegian waters, then rounded the northern tip of Scotland, and stopped in Irish waters. The ships returned to Kiel on the 28th of May. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm then participated in the annual autumn maneuvers, after which she was decommissioned, and the new battleship Westel Beach took her place as second-to-command flagship. The 4 Brandenburg-class battleships were taken out of service for a major reconstruction. The work to Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was done in the Kaiserliche Wharf shipyard in Wilhelmshaven. The work included increasing the ship's coal storage capacity and adding a pair of 10.5 centimeter guns. The plans had initially called for the center 28 centimeter turret to be replaced with the armored battery of medium caliber guns, but this proved to be prohibitively expensive. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was the last ship of her class to complete her reconstruction, which was finished on the 14th of December, 1905. On the 1st of January, 1906, she was assigned to the 2nd Squadron and served as flagship of the 1st Counter-Admiral Heinrich von Holzscherhoff, and then returned to autumn maneuvers of Counter-Admiral Adolf Panshilf. The fleet conducted a small routine of individual and unit training, interrupted only by the cruise to Norway from mid-July to early August. The annual autumn maneuvers occurred as usual. The Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm served as the second command flagship of the 1st Squadron of the newly created High Seas Fleet. But at the end of the 1906 training year, she was removed from active duty and her place was taken by the new battleship Pommern. Beginning on the 1st of October 1907, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was assigned to the Reserve Squadron in the North Sea, which had been created in early 1907 to train new crews. Her 3 sister ships joined her in this unit. Their typical duties consisted of training cruises to the North Sea from the 5th to the 25th of April. She operated with the training squadron with its flagship Veneta. In September, the Reserve Squadron contributed vessels to the autumn maneuvers. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm served as the Reserve Squadron flagship with the coastal defense ships Ager, Frithjor, and mineling cruisers Nautilus and Albatross. In the old Avius Blitz, Buford, and Zeton. The squadron was organized in Heaven, and joined the High Seas Fleet in the German Bight on the 8th of September. They participated in the main series of exercises off Helgoland, and the squadron was dissolved when the maneuvers ended on the 12th of September. After completing her annual winter overhaul, Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm returned to the Reserve Squadron in January 1909. Starting on the 27th of March, she operated with the training squadron again, the flagship of which was now the armored cruiser Frederick Karl, between the 30th of March and the 29th of April. She cruised in the central Baltic and in the waters around Rügen. She and the rest of the reserve squadron joined the autumn maneuvers in August, and the battleship Swannon replaced Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm as the flagship of the reserve squadron. Kurfürst Friedrich Wilhelm was then transferred to the 7th Division of the Reserve Squadron. She continued in this routine in early 1910. She operated with the training squadron from the 4th to the 29th of April and cruised to Stargard and the Western Baltic. The battleship was scheduled to take part in the autumn maneuvers, but shortly before the fleet assembled for the exercise, both she and Weissenburg were sold to the Ottoman Empire. In late 1909, the German military attached to the Ottoman Empire began a conversation with the Ottoman Navy. with the possibility of selling German warships to the Ottomans to counter Greek naval expansion. After lengthy negotiations, including Ottoman attempts to buy one or more of the newer battle cruisers, Von der Tann, Moltke, and Goeben, the Germans offered to sell the four ships of the Brandenburg-class at a cost of 10 million marks. The Ottomans chose to buy Kurfurst Friedrich Wilhelm and Weissenburg, since they were the more advanced ships of the class. The two battleships were renamed after the famous 16th century Ottoman admirals, Hayreddin Barbarossa and Tornagorias. They were transferred to the They were transferred on the 1st of September 1910, and the German crews took the ships to Constantinople, along with the four new destroyers also purchased from Germany. The Ottoman Navy, however, had great difficulty equipping the Barbaros Hayreddin and the Tornagorias. The Navy had to pull training enlisted men from the rest of the fleet just to put together crews for them. Both vessels suffered from considered troubles after they entered Ottoman service, which reduced their speed to 8 to 10 knots. A year later, in September of 1911, Italy declared war on the Ottoman Empire. The two battleships and the ancient central battery ironclad Majesty, which had been built in the mid-1870s, had been on a summer training cruise since July, and were so prepared for the conflict. On the 1st of October, shortly after the outbreak of war, Barbaros Hayreddin and the rest of the Ottoman fleet were moored in Wörth. The following day, the fleet departed for Constantinople for repairs in preparation to engaging the Italian Navy. Nevertheless, the bulk of the Ottoman fleet, including Barbaros Hayreddin, remained in port for the duration of the war. By the end of the war, Barbaros Hayreddin and her sister were in very poor condition. Their rangefinders and ammunition hoists for their main battery guns had been removed. Their telephones did not work, and the pipes for their pumps were badly rusted. Most of the watertight doors could not close, and the condensers remained problematic. The First Balkan War broke out in October of 1912, where the Balkan League attacked the Ottoman Empire after the war with Italy had revealed the scale of Ottoman weakness. The condition of Barbaros Hayreddin, as with most ships of the Ottoman fleet, had deteriorated significantly. During the war, Barbaros Hayreddin conducted gunnery training along with the other capital ships of the Ottoman Navy, escorted troop convoys, and the bombardment coastal installations. On the 17th of October, Barbaros Hayreddin and Tornagorias steamed to Ingenta. 2 days later, the two battleships bombarded Bulgarian artillery positions near Varna. On the 30th of October, Barbaros Hayreddin was back outside Varden to blockade the port along with the destroyer Nomini I Harmiet. On the 17th of November, Barbaros Hayreddin and Majesty bombarded Bulgarian positions in support of the 1st Corps with the aid of artillery observers ashore. The battleship's gunnery was poor, though it provided a moral boost for the defending Ottoman army dug in at Kalkita. From the 15th to the 20th of November, the ship was stationed in Balkan, along with her sister ship and several other warships. They saw no action against the small Bulgarian Navy. In December 1912, the Ottoman fleet was reorganized into an armored division. which included Barbaros Hayreddin as flagship, 2 destroyer divisions, and a 4th division composed of warships intended for independent operations. Over the next 2 months, the armored division attempted to break the Greek naval blockade of the Dardanelles, which resulted in 2 major naval engagements. At the Battle of Elli on the 16th of December 1912, the Ottomans attempted to launch an attack on Imbros. The Ottoman fleet sortied from the Dardanelles at 0930. The smaller craft remained at the mouth of the Straits while the battleships sailed north, hugging the coast. The Greek flotilla, which included the armored cruiser Gergos Avarov and 3 Hydra-class ironclads sailing from the east of Lemnos, alerted the course of the northeast to block the advance of the Ottoman battleships. The Ottoman ships opened fire on the Greeks at 0940 from a range of about 1,500 or 15,000 yards. 5 minutes later, Gergos Avarov crossed over the other side of the Ottoman fleet, placing the Ottomans in an unfavorable position of being under fire from both sides. At 950, and under heavy pressure from the Greek fleet, the Ottoman ships completed a 16-point turn, which reversed their course and headed for the safety of the trials, or straits. The turn was poorly conducted, and the ships fell out of formation, blocking each other's fields of fire. By 1017, both sides had ceased fire, and the Ottoman fleet withdrew into the Dardanelles. The ships reached port by 1300 hours and transferred their casualties to the hospital ship Reset Pasa. The battle is considered a Greek victory because the Ottoman fleet remained blockaded. During the battle, Barbaros Hayreddin was hit twice. The first shell hit the after deck and killed 5 men assigned to a damage control party. The second shell jammed the rear turret, placing it out of action. Shell fragments from this hit damaged several boilers and caused a fire in one of the coal bunkers. On the 4th of January 1913, the Ottoman Navy and Army attempted to blockade Kendos to retake the island from the Greeks. Barbaros Hayreddin and the rest of the fleet supported the operation, but the appearance of the Greek fleet forced the Ottomans to break off the operation. The Greek also withdrew, and several Ottoman cruisers opened fire as both sides departed, but no damage was done. By 1530, Barbaros Hayreddin was back at Cancale, inside the safety of the Dardanelles. On the 10th of January, the fleet conducted a patrol outside the Dardanelles. They encountered several Greek destroyers and forced them to withdraw, but inflicted no damage to the Greek ships. The Battle of Lemnos resulted from an Ottoman plan to lure the faster Gergos Avarov away from the Dardanelles. The protector cruiser Hamdinen invaded the Greek blockade and broke out into the Ionian Sea in an attempt to draw the Greek cruiser into pursuit. Despite the threat posed by the cruiser, the Greek commander refused to detach Gergos Avarov. By mid-January, however, the Ottomans had learned that the Gergos Avarov remained with the Greek fleet, and so Captain Remnants Newman Bey, the Ottoman fleet commander, decided to attack the Greeks regardless. Barbaros Hayreddin, Turgut Reis, and other units of the Ottoman fleet departed the Dardanelles at 0820 on the morning of the 18th of January and sailed towards the island of Lemnos at a speed of 11 knots. Barbaros Hayreddin led the line of battleships with a flotilla of torpedo boats on either side of the formation. The Barbaros Hayreddin, with 3 Hydra-class ironclads and 5 destroyers, sailed behind and intercepted the Ottoman fleet approximately 12 nautical miles from Lemnos. At 10:50, the Ottoman cruiser Majesty spotted the Greeks, and the fleet turned south to engage them. A long-range artillery duel that lasted for 2 hours began at around 11:50, when the Ottoman fleet opened fire at a range of 8,000 meters. They concentrated their fire on the Greek Barbaros Hayreddin, which returned fire at 1200 hours. At 12:50, the Greeks attempted to cross the T of the Ottoman fleet, but Barbaros Hayreddin turned north to block the Greek maneuver. The Ottoman commander detached the Medusa after a serious hit at 12:50. At around the same time, a shell hit Barbaros Hayreddin on her amidships turret, killing the entire gun crew. She was thereafter hit several times in the superstructure. These hits did relatively little damage, but they created significant smoke that was sucked into the boiler rooms and caused the ship's speed to fall to 5 knots. As a result, Tungut Reis took the lead of the formation, and Bay decided to break off the engagement. Towards the end of the engagement, Barbaros Hayreddin closed to within 5,000 yards and scored several hits on the fleeing Ottoman ships. At 1400, the Ottoman warships had come close enough to the shore to be protected by coastal batteries, forcing the Greeks to withdraw and ending the battle. During the battle, both Barbaros Hayreddin and her sister had a barbette disabled by gunfire, and both caught fire as well. Between Barbaros Hayreddin and Tungut Reis, the ships fired some 800 rounds, mostly of their main battery 28-centimeter or 11-inch ammunition, but without success. On the 8th of February, 1913, the Ottoman fleet supported an amphibious assault on Sharkoi. Barbaros Hayreddin and Tungut Reis, along with several cruisers, weighed anchor at 05:50 and arrived off the island at around 0900. The Ottoman fleet provided artillery support from about a kilometer offshore. The ships supported the left flank of the Ottoman army once it was ashore. The Bulgarian army provided stiff resistance that ultimately forced the Ottoman army to withdraw. Though the withdrawal was successful in large part due to the gunfire support from Barbaros Hayreddin and the rest of the fleet. During the battle, Barbaros Hayreddin fired 250 rounds from her 10.5 centimeter or 4.1 inch gun, or SKL-35 guns, and 130 rounds from her 8.8 centimeter or 3.5 inch SKL-30 guns. In March of 1913, the ship returned to the Black Sea to resume support of the Kashgant garrison, which was under renewed attacks by the Bulgarian army. On the 26th of March, the 28 centimeter or 11 inch and 10.5 centimeter or 4.1 inch shells fired by Barbaros Hayreddin and Tungut Reis helped to turn back the advance of the 2nd Brigade of the Bulgarian 1st Infantry Division. On the 30th of March, the left wing of the Ottoman line turned to pursue the retreating Bulgarians. Their advance was supported by both field artillery and the heavy guns of Barbaros Hayreddin, and the assault gained the Ottomans about 1,500 meters by nightfall. In response, the Bulgarians brought the 1st Bulgarian to the front, which beat the Ottoman advance back to its starting position. In the summer of 1914, World War I broke out in Europe. Though the Ottomans initially remained neutral, On the 3rd of August 1914, Barbaros Hayreddin began a refit in Constantinople. German engineers inspected her and other Ottoman warships in the dry dock and found them to be in a state of severe despair. Owing to the state of tension, repairs could not be effected, and only ammunition, coal, and other supplies were loaded. By early November, the actions of the German battlecruiser Goblin, which had been transferred to the Ottoman Navy, resulted in declarations of war by Russia, France, and Great Britain. Between 1914 and 1915, some of the ship's guns were removed and employed as coastal guns to shore up the defenses, protecting the Dardanelles. In the meantime, she was used as a floating artillery battery at the Nora Naval Base, along with her sister Corinth Reis. Early during the stint, the ship were immobilized, but as the threat from British submarines grew, steam was kept up in her boilers to allow them to move quickly. Barbaros Hayreddin returned to Constantinople on the 11th of March 1915. The Ottoman High Command had decided that both ships were not needed at all times. Over the next several months, the two ships attempted altered trips to Constantinople. On the 25th of April, the two battleships bombarded the British landings on the first day of the Kurfurst campaign. After firing 14 shells, the 15th detonated in the right gun barrel in the center turret, destroying the gun. After a shell explosion inside the turret of Target Reis's gun in earlier June, both battleships were drawn. On the 7th of August, the British landed more troops in Soviet Bay, prompting the High Command to send Barbaros Hayreddin to support the Ottoman defenses there. In addition, she was loaded with a large quantity of ammunition to resupply the 5th Army fighting in Jorpeted in the Gallipoli campaign. The next day, while she was en route to the area with only a single torpedo boat as escort, she was intercepted by the British submarine HMS E11 off at Bulgaria in the Sea of Maria. The submarine hit Barbaros Hayreddin with a single torpedo. She capsized 7 minutes later, but remained afloat for a few minutes before she slipped below the waves. The ship sank with the loss of 21 officers and 237 men. The rest of the crew were picked up by her escort and a second torpedo boat patrolling the area. And that will conclude today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, please leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so that way you guys don't miss out on any future content. Leave a comment down below if you guys have any questions, concerns, or requests. And I hope you all have a fabulous day. Peace out.